This is the doghouse that I built, and I'd like to go over the steps involved in building it, starting from the framing, especially the rafters, and I'll have a tutorial on how to do rafters. And so this is the final product, and stay tuned for the steps it took to build it. I'm using 2x3 lumber. Notice I do have a ridge board. That is a 2x4. And notice I did cut the rafters to fit snugly against the ridge board, and I cut out bird mouth for each rafter to fit on the side. I was pretty pleased with how tight each joint is. And notice that I put the siding on first before I did the rafter. That way I could get the siding all the way up flush with this top plate. The floor is made with a plywood top. The three sides are built the same way, with just like building a wall on a house. You have a bottom plate, a top plate, and then three vertical supports, and that's for all three sides. This is the back wall of the doghouse. It's just like the two side walls, except you have to be real careful to make that bottom plate fit snugly there, so that when you screw all those sides together, everything squares up nicely. It has a small plate there with two vertical pieces. The other side, a small plate, two vertical pieces, and there's just one top plate connecting all of that. That way you don't have a 2x4 in the entryway. Next, I screwed in this piece of board right here, which will be the top framework for the door, the entryway. And to make that square, I just put a 15-inch board there, screwed it in. Put a 15-inch board there, screwed it in. That way you don't have to measure, you just hold it steady while you screw it in. So that's basically the framework. I thought of something else I wanted to point out. Notice, if you look down, these rafters go to the very top here of the ridge. You don't want it below, because when you put the plywood on, this ridge board would be in the way. So you want it to be pretty flush so that it fits up there real nicely. For the siding, I found a really good option is to use a 4x8 sheet of siding that you can buy at Lowe's or Home Depot. And I had the guy at Lowe's cut off 3 pieces. This is 27 inches long there, and I did that for all 3 sides. Then that made it manageable sizes to carry out of the store. Then I just did the other cuts when I got back to the shop. So you can see that all the pieces fit uniformly. I created a materials list, which I'll go over briefly. You'll mainly need 2x3s, and for the floor, they need to be either treated or cedar. And the long side would be 35 inches, so you need 2 of those. The 3 cross pieces, approximately 25 inches. Then you cover the floor with a exterior plywood, 1/2 or 3/8. The rest of the framework is 2x3s, and you can use pine for those. You'll need 4 35-inch long pieces, 13 23-inch pieces for the studs, the wall studs. The 35 is for the bottom and top plates. And you'll need approximately 2 that are 23 inches for the back wall for the top and bottom plates. I'll show you more about that below. And I always use deck screws instead of nails from the fasteners, either 3-inch or 2-inch. It makes it so much stronger, and it's easier to drive in, especially if you use the star drive screws. Now, concerning these 2 that are 23 inches, if you look from a top view, here's this 2 side walls, and here's the bottom. You just want to make sure that the plate between these 2 walls, it fits exactly in there at the bottom and top. So it may be 23 inches or slightly more or less, depending on your exact width. But make sure it fits in there very snugly, top and bottom, so that when you screw everything together, it's square. Now, to find the calculation for the rafters, we have to know the width of the doghouse. So look at a top view of the doghouse. This dark area represents the siding that I showed you earlier is on each side. So from the edge of that siding to the edge of that siding is 28 3/8 or 28.375. If you divide that by 2 to get the halfway point, that's 14.18. But we can't actually use the exact midpoint for this length from the midpoint to the edge. We have to take into consideration the ridge board and go to the left of that ridge board, and that ridge board is 1.5 inches, so half of that is 0.75. So if you go 0.75 over straight down, it forms a right triangle, and we have to use this as one length from that dotted line to the edge. So to do that, we subtract the 0.75, this distance here, from the 14.18, we get 13.44. So we know from this distance over to the edge, including the siding, is 13.44. Now we need to find this top length, the height up to the top of the ridge board. And I know it's 12.3 because I'm using an 11-12 pitch. That's the pitch that I chose to use. And the ratio of 11 to 12 from the top across, it's the same ratio as 12.3 to 13.44. All you have to do to find that is multiply this 13.44 times the pitch, which is 11/12, and that's how you get the 12.3. So we know the height is 12.3, The width is 13.4, so to find the rafter length, we use a Pythagorean theorem. I know many of you wondered what in the world you would use that for later in life, but it is your friend. The Pythagorean theorem says for a right triangle, c squared equals a squared plus b squared. This formula. So if we plug in these numbers, c squared equals a squared, which is 12.3 squared, plus b squared, which is 13.4 squared. You square those with your calculator and then add the two numbers up. Then take the square root. You get 18.2. So we know the rafter length is 18.2 from the top of the ridge board down to the edge of the doghouse. So here's a mock-up of the 2x3 that we will be cutting, and from this tip of the board you go down 18.2 and draw this line, then draw another line. This is an extension that goes past the edge of the doghouse. It can be whatever you want. I made it approximately 8 inches. Now, how do you draw this? What angle is this? That I'm going to show you next, and we'll be using a speed square to determine that. But this is what it's going to look like. This is 18.2 inches, another 8 inches. Then you'll draw these angles, cut this off, then cut this off, and then on this angle you'll draw a little right angle here, and that's the bird's mouth, and that's where the rafter fits on the top of the plate of the wall. Here is the very useful tool. It's a Swanson speed square, and the way you find that angle I was talking about is you use this lip here and put it on the board so that now you have a 90-degree angle, and all you have to do to find the 11-12 pitch angle is to pivot this up until you find 11 on the common scale. This is the common scale right here. Notice it says common. So if you go all the way up to the 12 right here on the common scale, that would be a 45-degree angle. Take it down to the 11, and that's represents the 11-12 pitch. And if you notice right here, that's a 42-degree angle. That's the key, 42 degrees. So you can set your miter saw to cut a 42-degree angle, and that'll equal this angle right here. And you draw that line 3 times, once at the very tip of the board, one where the bird's mouth was, and one for the drip edge.